Hi, I'm Ems, aka on Deck on Wings, and if you're into miniature wargaming like myself, you've probably come across Trench Crusade. This is a tabletop skirmish game set in an alternative timeline of World War I. Demons have been terrorizing Earth for hundreds of years, unleashed by humans themselves, and they possess some of the factions. They're ultra-zealot religious factions which try and fight these, however, like with 40k, there are nuances into what is good and ultimately evil. I will be going into more detail about the factions and the setting in a future video. I will be painting up a miniature from each of these factions. But in this video I will be focusing on some terrain and creating a photography backdrop for these miniatures to take some photos with. I'm a huge fan of creating dioramas and backdrops, and I love the aesthetic and setting of Trench Crusade. I'm a fan of World War I history and 20th century history in general. And I'm a big fan of the Impressionist art which came out of World War I, such as the artist Otto Dix, who's worth checking out. So firstly, I will be working on a photography backdrop. Here I have some rollers which I've 3D printed. One is of some sandbags, and the other is of a muddy trench with some footprints. These are hollow, so these are great for 3D printing. They're varying different designs, and I'll put the link in the description below where you can get these files to print yourself. These are from a company called Custom Miniature Maker, and this particular series is called Frontline Crusade. They also have a bunch of other terrain which would look great for Trench Crusade. So firstly, I grabbed some Daz clay. This was a bit dry, so I wet it with some water first. You could also use green stuff and milliput or any other clay that you want. I usually repurpose these rolls which tinfoil is wrapped around. I'm rolling this out on cardboard as well, because it usually sticks to the cardboard, or you can glue it down afterwards as well. It just has a base for a structure, and it'll give you a rough idea of the size that you want, especially with this being a photography backdrop. If you're working with Daz clay, it's always a good idea to add a little bit of water anyway, it just rolls out a bit easier. Now it's been roughly rolled out to a size which I like, I'm going to put the roller on it. I've added a little bit of water on this so it doesn't stick. I'm inserting some pressure onto it so I get the details and the texture coming out. If you're not happy with the way that you've rolled it out, simply just start again, so use your rolling pin over the top to flatten it out. Green Stuff World have some really cool pre-done rollers that you can buy, but there's quite a lot of 3D printable rollers out there. I'm just skipping ahead here, and this is what's done. It'll look better once it's painted up, and then I'm just going to trim the sides. And then I'm doing the same with the other roller, so I've just flattened this out, adding a little bit of extra water so there's less resistance. I'm just using the sandbag roller. I've added some more water to this so it doesn't stick too much. I have had this clay quite a while, so it's a little bit dry, but it still came out pretty well. And as you can see here, the textures come out, and as I said before, the cardboard gives you a good guide as to what size that you want and where to cut it out with some scissors. It's probably better to cut it when it's wet like this, it's just easier and it won't crumble as much. Moving on here, I left them overnight to dry. As you can see, a little bit has crumbled off, but that's fine, I can just cut around the excess a bit more. And I've primed these both in black, and then I'm going to be working on the muddy trench part. I use chocolate chip from AK Interactive. This is a dark brown colour, similar to a Rhinox hide from Citadel. I've just put the paint straight onto this rather than a palette. I'll waste less paint and it's less fussing around back and forth. And I'm just dry brushing this over the top. No rhyme or reason to it, it's just going to bring out the texture on top of this. And once this is dried, I mix reddish grey and that chocolate chip together from AK Interactive to make a grey brown colour, and I'm just dry brushing this over the top to bring out the texture. And as I said before, this one has like footprints on it. You could also use these rollers to make some bases, so if you've got some like cookie cutters or round cutters which you can buy or 3D print, they would look really cool as well. And yeah, that's the base of the photography stand finished off. I think that looks cool. Moving on to the sandbags. I have orc hide here from Tooth and Coats. I didn't want to do the sandbags in brown, I wanted a contrasting colour. Once again, I'm just squeezing this on top of it, just for ease. I really enjoy painting up terrain, I find it relaxing and there's less pressure than painting up miniatures. Once I was finished with that first layer, I mixed Black Legion, a contrast paint from Citadel, with that orc hide, thinned it down, and I'm just washing it over the top, just to bring out some of the details in the recesses and the creases. And then I'm just going to dab off some of the excess. You could probably use oils as well, but oils take that bit longer to dry, and I just wanted to get this done quickly. And yeah, I'm really satisfied with how this turned out as well. And yeah, I think this would look great as a photography backdrop for some Trench Crusade miniatures. Last minute I thought I would add some snow-based diorama stuff from AK Interactive to this. It would just add to the atmosphere a little bit more. I've really enjoyed working with this texture, and it's really easy to work with. It dries fairly quickly in about an hour or less. It's just dependent on how thick you make it, so you could do it in layers, wait for one layer to dry and then add some more. And you can also thin this down with some water or some thinning medium to make like a more icy look to it. Sorry this was filmed at an angle, I'm still getting used to where my hobby desk is now. And as you can see here, I've added some to the sandbag one as well. Moving on to some cool greebly bits which I've 3D printed. These are some boxes with some sandbags over the top and also a wooden barricade. I've already primed these in black. I love the detail on these, especially the texture on the sandbags. Once again, these files are from the previous ones the rollers came from, and they'll be in the link in the description below. I'm going to be starting up painting the barricade first of all. This will be done in Citadel's Doombull Brown. It has a reddish brown hue to it, and this will contrast nicely with the green of the sandbags since it has red with it. I dry brushed that paint over the top, and as you can see, there's some wonderful textures on these. After this step, I dry brushed some Satire Brown. This is from Tooth and Coats. This has like an orangey tinge to it, so it'll look nicely with that Doombull Brown whilst it's more of a reddy brown. I've grabbed a smaller brush and I'm just focusing on some smaller areas so that Doombull Brown will still show through. And I wanted to make it look like it was worn out wood. Once again, I really find painting up terrain really satisfying, and I really recommend that you do it. Especially when you've got a bit of a hobby burnout going on. It's so much easier than painting miniatures and less pressure on yourself. I love the detail on this barricade. The texture and grain on it is quite realistic, really nice. And honestly, it's really super satisfying painting up terrain. I just wanted to add one last layer of paint to this, just to add some more highlights and some variation, as well as making it look a bit more worn out and weathered. So I mixed that previous brown in with some ice yellow from AK Interactive. I'm not adding as much of this, so we still have the previous colour showing through. I really like ice yellow. I like adding it instead of white, because white tends to desaturate your colours out more, whereas this one doesn't as much. Moving on now to the sandbags on the boxes. I've grabbed that orc kind I used previously on the rolled out texture, and I'm going over the top of the sandbags. I'm dry brushing this with this smallish brush, and as you can see, the textures on this are wonderful, they're coming out. I skipped painting up the boxes on video. I pretty much just did the same steps as I did with that barricade. I then got that ice yellow, which I used previously, mixed it with that orc hide, and I'm just dry brushing it over the top just to add a bit more detail. I really enjoy dry brushing, especially when there's a lot of texture and detail which comes out. And these are finished off now, and I think they look great for the short time I spent on them. I'm wearing some gloves here because that stuff stuck to my hands before and I don't want it to be ruining anything else or my clothes. I'm also going to add some frost effects from Vallejo. You add this on with a brush and just put it over the top of the desired area, and then over time, it takes a couple hours, these frost crystals will form. And if you wait till the end of the video, I'll be showing some pictures of these. I also painted up a bullet shrine. The bullet shrine is from a company called Diceverse. I'll put the link in the description below. I really like bullet shrines, I think they're so cool. I've skipped the steps of painting up the wooden part of the shrine since it's the same steps as I did with the other parts of terrain, but I'll show you how I painted up the bullet. So I grabbed royal gold from Darkstar, and I'm just dry brushing this all over the top of the bullet. And then I thinned down some cursed blue from 2 thin coats, and this will look like a patina verdigris. I've thinned the paint down to make it more of a wash consistency, and I'll put this over the top of the bullet. I think that this type of blue and green patina looks great over gold and more bronze type of things. And then I just dabbed away some of the excess so you can still see the gold coming through. And as promised, here are the photos of the terrain finished. Really pleased with how these turned out. And here is the other terrain. As you can see, there's the addition of these crosses. I 3D printed these out as well from Diceverse. These were painted up the same way as the barricade, so I didn't bother showing the steps. Overall, I really enjoyed painting these up. I think the background looks fantastic. It has this really gritty vibe to it. And here you can see some miniatures I've painted up for Trench Crusade as well. If you'd like to support me, I do have a Patreon, the link will be in the description below. I'm also on social media, links there as well. As always, thank you for watching. Remember to enjoy your hobbies for yourself, and at the end of the day, they're just war dollies. I will catch you in the next one.